students, how are you? I hope you are very good at your home, and today we will discuss the mathematics of class 9, right? And as you know that in the last video lectures we have completed the chapter number 1 and chapter number 2, right? Chapter number 1 was about the number system and chapter number 2 was about the polynomials. And in this chapter number 3 we will discuss about the coordinate geometry. So here we will see the coordinate geometry. As you know that this is the part of the geometry. So in this chapter we will learn the introduction part, how to draw the graph and the coordinate, and that system is known as the coordinate system. And in the next topic we will see the Cartesian system, and then how to point out the coordinates on the axis, or we can say the Cartesian planes, right? Cartesian system में किसी भी कोऑर्डिनेट को किस तरीके से लोकेट करना है, to find the position of that point in the Cartesian plane, that we will learn in the further part of this chapter. So let us learn about the terminology or the introductory part of the coordinate geometry. Coordinate geometry, before learning the coordinate geometry and solving the questions, we have to know the basic terminology of this topic. So first of all we will see the coordinate system. When we learn the coordinate geometry, so this coordinate geometry is also known as the coordinate system, right? As you can see that I have written the basic terminology on the board. So first of all we will see the definition of the coordinate system. What is the coordinate system? The system used for describing the position of a point in a plane with reference to two mutually perpendicular lines is called Cartesian or rectangular coordinate geometry, or the Cartesian coordinate system, right? So what does it mean? The system, right, used for describing the position of a point. Suppose we have a plane. So here I will discuss here with the example. Suppose we have this rectangular plane, right? It may be rectangular, it may be square, whatever the shape of this plane. Suppose it is the rectangular plane, and suppose we have the point over here, right? So you can see on the plane we can't decide the position of this point. So in this chapter or the coordinate system we will learn how to find the position of this point onto the Cartesian plane, or we can say the simple plane, right? So to find out the point in a plane with reference to two mutually perpendicular lines. Two mutually perpendicular lines, it means these are the axes. One is the horizontal line, which is known as the x-axis, and another is the vertical line, that is the y-axis, right? So these are, you can see that they are mutually perpendicular on each other, and this is the reason they have written two mutually perpendicular lines is called Cartesian or the rectangular coordinate system. So on this rectangular plane, as I have drawn these two mutually perpendicular line, one is the x-axis and another is the y-axis. So you can see that there is the rectangular coordinate system is ready, right? यहाँ पर आप देख रहे हैं coordinate system जो है यहाँ पर ready हो चुका है. तो यहाँ पर आपने देखा, as we can simply say that to find the position of this point, right? To find the coordinate or the position of this point, we have to draw these two mutually perpendicular lines, and these lines are known as the coordinate axis, right? So this is the coordinate system. Now we will see what is the coordinate axis. So as you can see that there are the two axes, one is the x-axis and y-axis. So how we can define that? In this definition we can see that. Let us draw a horizontal line on a graph. Just like you can see that as I have done already, है ना, यहाँ पर हमने horizontal line बनाया है. You can see there is a horizontal line x on the graph paper. Suppose it is the graph paper, है ना. Here we can take the another example. I think you all have seen the graph paper, right? So you can see that on the graph paper there are some vertical lines, right? And there are also some horizontal lines are on this paper, right? This is, suppose these are the example of the graph paper, and in this horizontal and vertical lines you will have many small lines, right? You can see that many small thin lines. So this is like the graph paper. So always when you make the coordinate axis, for the use of the coordinate geometry, you have to use this graph paper. So they are talking about the graph paper. So you have to draw the horizontal line on the graph paper and draw a vertical line intersecting the horizontal line. यहाँ पर आप देख रहे हैं, you can see this is the x-axis, that is the horizontal line, and here is the y-axis, which is the perpendicular line, which is intersecting on this particular point, right? This point is exactly known as the origin, right? So this is the intersecting point, right? Draw a vertical line intersecting the horizontal line. The horizontal line is called the x-axis. I have explained already over there. And the horizontal line is called the x-axis and the vertical line is called the y-axis, right? So the two lines taken together are called the coordinate axis. So as you can see that perpendicular line, that is the y-axis, and the horizontal line, that is the x-axis. So similarly, this is the plane where we have drawn this line. As you can also draw these two perpendicular and the horizontal axis onto this graph paper. So you will have the coordinate axis, right? So whenever you draw the coordinate axis, so you have to use the graph paper. So this is the basic information about the coordinate axis, and now we will see the origin. As I have already told you that where these two axes are intersecting each other, that is known as the origin. So how we can define that definition? The point of intersection of x-axis and y-axis are called the origin. So this point, which is denoted as 0, or we can also call it as O, that is the origin, right friends? So I hope this basic terminology that I have shown on this board, so you can easily understand. So I hope you have to write in your copy and just note it down. I am giving you few seconds, right? And after that we will see the introduction and the other part of this chapter. Now friends, we have seen about the origin, and after this we will see what is the quadrant. The next terminology about this chapter, that is the quadrant. As we have seen that as we draw the y-axis and the x-axis on the Cartesian system, so what we will have the origin, which is the intersecting point, and as you can see that the area of that Cartesian plane, which is divided into the four parts, that is the first quadrant, this is the second quadrant, third quadrant and fourth quadrant. So as you can see that in this figure, as I have drawn the x-axis and y-axis, so the area of this plane or the Cartesian system, it is divided into the four parts, and that part is known as the quadrants, right? So how we can define that? The coordinate axis divide the plane of the graph paper, right? जैसे ही हम यहाँ पर x-axis और y-axis को हम graph paper पे बनाते हैं, so the area of that graph paper is divided into the four parts and into the four regions called the quadrant, right? We can also say that the four regions, that is the first quadrant, it is the second quadrant, third quadrant and the fourth quadrant, right? So this is the definition of the quadrant. I hope you can understand this very easily. And now we will see the coordinate of a point, right? Suppose we have a point on the Cartesian system in any quadrant, right? In any quadrant, if we have the points, so that is known as the x and y. Suppose we have the point A on the Cartesian plane and the coordinate of that point A is x and y, right? So be the point in the plane, that is x and y. So what is x? X is the distance of a point from the y-axis, right? And what is y? Y is the distance of the point from the x-axis, right? So here this is known as the x coordinate and this is known as the y coordinate, and the x coordinate is also known as the abscissa, right? That is also known as the abscissa, and y coordinate is also known as the ordinate, right? So this is the basic terminology about that. So suppose let us take some example. So we have to point out this point A anywhere in this quadrant. We have the four quadrant, so we can find